Well, hello, that's me again. Today is the September 23, and let's start our conversation today. And we have a lot to talk about, believe me. And you probably already can see that I'm in a little bit of smug and really satisfied mood, and there is a reason for that. But the point is, let's start with simple things. Let's start with the logic. Look at this. You see this? This is watermelon. Now, let's do the other thing. You see this? This is Stephen Hawking. Okay? You see this? This is Mr. Biden being completely himself, being lost. It's the worst issue of losing himself on the stage, which happened 2 days ago, but he is the president of the United States. Now let's continue with the other logic of this type. Here it is. EU not at war with Russia, senior official said. And I quote for you, the European Union is not at war with Russia, but it will continue to support Ukraine in its fight against Moscow. EU foreign policy spokesman Peter Stano said on Wednesday. Of course we are not in war with Russia. We are supporting Ukraine legitimate justified fight to defend its people and its territory, he said, adding that Kyiv is protecting not only itself, but also European democratic values. So as you can see yourself, it's the same logic which makes Mr. Bean Stephen Hawking, which makes basically walking mommy, I'm sorry to say about it, the president of the United States, and which makes a banana to be a watermelon. And so to demonstrate further how this logic, or rather lack thereof, works, I can show you something else. And this is official statement by Maria Zakharova, a spokesperson of the Russian Foreign Ministry, who accused correctly, justifiably, believe me, I know, I listened to the speech by Putin, about the false quoting of the speech of the Russian President Vladimir Putin. And she accused him of improper behavior. My gosh, accusing Biden of improper behavior is like, telling me that I'm Andrei Martyanov, but so there we go. And she explained that American president assigned to his Russian colleague words about the threat of the use of the nuclear weapons. There was nothing like this in Putin's speech, absolutely. People evidently do not understand the fundamental semantic difference between the threat and warning. And he merely warned when speaking about Liz Truss without obviously telling her name or, speaking openly about her name. And you remember Liz Truss wanted to push the button, to kill those Ruskies. He stated that, windrows in Europe can change. And windrows meaning what? All those contamination and really bad nuclear things, falling on England. Granted that it will not be struck before that by nuclear weapons in case the NATO and especially Liz Truss decides to do the unthinkable. And of course, as I already stated, there are specific articles in Russian military doctrine which completely describe the situation or criteria for the use of the nuclear weapons. And Russian military doctrine approved on the 2014, and it was signed by Vladimir Putin almost in December 2014, before 2015. And Articles 26, 27, I believe, they are very specific about when Russia will use the nuclear weapon, when, of course, the very existence of the Russian state and territorial integrity of Russia are directly threatened. Aha! So we might go now close to the basically whole situation with the mobilization or partial mobilization. But let me tell you something about it before we go into this. And this is a very interesting, I would say almost sensational thing. Because, look at this. Suddenly, of all people, Associated Press, which itself is a very kind, how to put it, propaganda spewing and misinformation spreading media outlet, had to go out and state that basically video of traffic at the Finnish-Russian border which was attributed to allegedly flight of many Russians from their partial mobilization, is nothing more than, well, misrepresented is the soft way, so to speak, describing bullshit. Because what was shown there, and here it is, Associated Press assessment, false. The video was filmed at the Valima border crossing point between Russia and Finland on August 29, weeks before Putin announced the partial mobilization of Russian reservists to Ukraine. Finland's border authority has been monitoring the traffic and stated on Thursday that the increase of traffic at the Finnish-Russian border has been comparable to typical weekend traffic. I don't know what happened, guys. I don't know what happened to Associated Press that they suddenly couldn't take this bullshit anymore and they had to come up, and say that, yeah, it's false. Well, false pretty much everything you hear about Russian special military operations and partial mobilization. And let me kind of get, so to speak, into the neck of the woods here. First, people have to understand that a special military operation actually proceeds apace, and despite the fact that, yeah, sometimes you have the serious fights there, and Ukraine is throwing basically the piles of corpses on the Russian defenses there, which is inevitable, and as Colonel Douglas Macgregor beautifully described the situation in his latest article in the American Conservative from yesterday. I will leave the link to this excellent article below this video. He used the term impaling themselves, which is absolutely true. And here comes the question. Many pundits, all of whom have zero military experience, zero military education, and even the people like this General Keane, General Petraeus, General what have you, and generals of the US Army who continue to spread BS about this whole situation, they decided to say that partial mobilization, partial, mind you, partial, was something out of the ordinary. Well, in some sense it was. You know why? You of course know it, because starting from yesterday, there are basically referenda are being kept for more than 100,000 square kilometers and more than 5.5 million people joining Russia, returning to Russia. And that means essentially that what Russia gets, not only Russia obtains the territory and new casus belli, because in this case, once this is, those territories are accepted in Russia, which will be by the 1st of October, by the extraordinary session of Duma and Federation Council, where those laws will be basically validated and voted for, it means that Ukraine becomes an aggressor. And everything what is happening in Donbass and what have you will be treated as attack on Russia. And boy, I mean, we have some interesting development. But the primarily partial mobilization, which, by the way, already have been debunked, it's not 1 million people, and even around those 300,000, which is announced, actually, it's going to be in several waves. In several waves. And fact is, most, I don't know what, probably 65–70% of those people will never see the actual combat, because basically what happens, Russia obtains today, well, starting today and by the 1st of October, she will get the new military district, because new territories will become new military district, and border one and near the NATO basically alliance, essentially, because NATO is directly involved in the war in Ukraine. And what do you need? Of course, you need the infrastructure. You can officially start building it. You need people to man what eventually amounts now to probably at this stage you would say Western Front military district. But eventually, once things will calm down, it's probably going to be, I don't know, maybe it will be separated in 2 districts, with part of it going to the southern military district, the other part going to the western military districts, or maybe it will be kept as the separate military district, and that also gives you ability to create the second echelon. And that's where the people will be going primarily. Some of them will be going to the front lines, but that's where people will be going primarily. They will be guarding these new Russian territories. So there is nothing really outstanding in terms of this partial mobilization. And of course, the same as the issue with the Associated Press, which suddenly decided to exhibit some kind of integrity. We basically being bombarded by the incessant Western propaganda about Russians escaping the partial mobilization. First, it's mostly garbage. Yeah, you probably have the fifth column and on those lipshits, so to speak, liberal, urban, hipsters trying to escape. Good riddance, let them. But majority of people, you can easily find a number of videos which actually demonstrate, and from the localities, ranging from Chechnya. In Chechnya, you have the crowds of young guys flocking to military commissariats. Same is happening in Siberia. Even in Moscow, it happens this way. So, yeah, Russians are not really afraid of this. And in fact, is the amount of volunteers. So probably they will exceed their required basically number, which, again, as I stated, will not be drafted or, so to speak, mobilized immediately. Probably the first round, I don't know how many will be there. I don't know, probably 60, 70,000 people. Probably they will go through their, obviously, combat cohesion training. Most of those people already have military background. There will be no students, no young people who never served, and there will be no draftees, no recruits, so to speak, basically used for the front lines and second echelon. Basically, you will have the second echelon, which will be formed for people who already know what they are doing. Some of them, actually quite a few of them, are military veterans from Syria to Chechnya to what have you. And so when you have the second echelon, that means what? You begin to free forces to continue to drive into Ukraine. Namely, as we already stated before, it's probably, again, Nikolaev, Odessa most likely to make this land bridge to Transnistria, and then we'll see where it all goes. But that's what basically what happens right now. And of course, the whole situation in the West, they are in a full-blown panic mode. That is why, for example, they constantly need this bullshit PR actions like whatever the VSU, Armed Forces of Ukraine, tried to perform near Kharkov, which is, as my friend Vladimir Trukhan stated correctly, in the real serious war, without all those bloggers and military analysts and American and NATO generals commenting on this, this would have been reported as the local firefights. That's what it is. But they needed something. And as Colonel Douglas MacGregor correctly stated, they impaled themselves. So, and we already know the numbers basically, and I already commented on this. And of course, right now the panic mode is such that even Washington Post, which is, it's basically a tabloid now. It's a rag, it's a propaganda outlet. I don't even know how to really properly describe this crap, which they publish. But they already stated to say that, oh yeah, American officials, of course, unknown American officials, anonymous, and as you can understand, we don't know even if it happened, they supposedly warned Russians if they used their nuclear weapons. Oh, no shit. Pardon me, yeah, it's like, what's next? What are they trying to deliver to Russians? We've been through this before, didn't we? Remember those bounties which Russians placed on the US GIs in Afghanistan? Complete crap. The same is here. Russians do have most likely some kind of behind the curtain communications with the United States, and you know what? People from the United States side, no, you cannot go and threaten Russia with nuclear weapons. You just simply cannot. So pretty much it's the same old tune, which is, beaten to death, idea and attempts to present United States stronger than it is, which in reality, of course, it's not true, because United States is going down together with Europe, at an incredible rate. And here we have this situation that, we have this guy who is Admiral Charles Richards, who says nuclear war is possible. Okay, yeah, nuclear war is always possible. It's just the probability of it. But Richard claimed that the US would have to prepare to escalate quickly against possible opponents and to protect its homeland. You see this thing, protect its homeland? That's when I started to laugh hysterically, because you know what? I'm, for all intents and purposes now, American. I'm a United States citizen. And frankly, protect against who, Mr. Admiral? Are Russians trying to invade United States? No. Chinese? I don't think so. Well, we have definitely the issue of the immigration, but other than that, I mean, who is going to be, you know, threatening the stability and security of the United States? I don't know, but this is the way it is. And I already spoke earlier today with some of my friends in Russia, and the question is that, yeah, essentially what we have here are those kind of last gasps to, you know, in desperate attempts to defend United States, not even actual, but even just image of the omnipotent power which can, you know, which basically a hegemon and things of this nature. Of course, it's not the case anymore. And if we go further today, you know, there are some things which are absolutely peculiar and funny. Look at this. Here's what Bloomberg says. They need now in Washington, D.C. a person who will be dealing with the basically the economic sanctions for U.S. Treasury Department, and they're hiring someone to make sure those measures, that means sanctions, do what they are supposed to do. Well, this is a tacit, well, not so tacit, you know, admission of the fact that how bizarrely the whole situation with the sanctions failed and really struck West. In terms like, yeah, people say boomerang, it's worse than that. It's like you launch boomerang, you have the cruise missile coming back at you. And here it is. This job, which you have to have top secret clearance, and pay $150,000 a year, it's part of Biden administration push to limit the unintended consequences of economic sanctions given the increased use and growing complexity. Sanctions on Russia over the Ukrainian war, the first time the US has imposed such sweeping measures on a group of 20 economy, compounded those headaches. Well, I have some news for Mr. Biden and those people who will be dealing with this. They don't understand how economy works, and I mean it, literally, they don't. Because obviously they screwed it up so badly that Europe is done. We know that Europe is done economically. As I speak now, it's just absolute mess. And we will see where it will lead us politically. But the United States itself, hey, they said that the economy of Russia was smaller than that of Netherlands. Well, guess what? As much as I constantly on the record that stock market has nothing to do with basically the real economy, but still I have to, you know what, go for it. And here it is. Let me see, where is this thing, if I really saved it. But from what I see, yeah, I don't see it here. We already know that basically the stock market this morning was down like what, 700 points. So, and of course, Russians, yeah, here they are, there. And yeah, that was 687, right now it's 700, and probably it's gonna go up a little bit, as always at the closing bell, you know, this is how it's done. So, but the point is that the real economy is tanking. It's tanking because obviously the consumer base is shrinking, and there are other economic issues which basically indicative of the whole collapse of the West as we speak. United States, as I already stated, has a better chances to kinda survive it, because it, by sacrificing Europe at the altar of its ambitions, United States can extend it somewhat, you know, and even these people talk about that high energy prices could cause manufacturers to flee Europe. Well, yeah, and you probably remember from my previous videos, I spoke about it for a long time, that the onshore flow, so to speak, of some companies from Europe are possible, as they write, the Inflation Reduction Act makes the US a particularly attractive destination for companies in the chemicals, batteries, and green energy sectors. Well, green energy sector is not exactly really impactful thing, but that's a separate issue. But yes, there will be those, who will be trying to escape what is happening in Europe. But I want to repeat it again, and I want to stress it. Just keep it in mind that United States, while having this plan, which is being implemented, and Europe is being killed basically, they need to understand that the idea that the United States will get some onshore, get some businesses and money back to the United States, and then will start basically using as the Europe, Western Europe, as the colony, selling its very expensive liquid natural gas, which United States still doesn't have even, and all other products. They don't understand one simple thing. And when people say, that's so obvious, well, guys, there's nothing obvious for anybody in Washington, D.C. nowadays, okay? They are that stupid. And the issue is that because the ability to Europe to afford shit, pardon my French, and for consumers to buy something it's already been reduced dramatically. And it will actually lead to the collapse of the consumer, not only confidence, but the ability to pay for services and things. And that's what they don't understand. So basically killing Europe, they also kill their own market. It's so obvious. This is not colonialism of the late of the 19th or early 20th century. It's completely different nowadays today, And there are many people standing in their, wings waiting for this to happen. And guess what? China is rubbing hands gladly. Russians don't care. Russians transfer its all oil and gas to China, India, what have you. So Europe is alone. Europeans choose it, So, and they voted for this. So it's their responsibility to handle it for themselves. But if they will begin to continue, or they will continue with basically escalation of war, well, guess what? Russia is certainly not Yugoslavia. You know what? And Russia can, basically wipe the Europe off the map in 25, well, probably less than that, 10, 15 minutes. So that's how it works nowadays, guys. And of course, that's why these things, kind of, if we conclude this on a funny note, here is the guy in Russia, and Twitch blocked him because the guy was translating 24/7 how he burns his stove on the kitchen to Europeans and playing Russian patriotic songs. Europeans took offense on that. Well, they obviously stopped, and stopped the account of this guy. But guess what? There was another guy who doing even worse things. He put some ducks into the bathtub and started running basically hot water, doing the same, translating it 24/7 to Europeans. Hey, Europe, it was your choice. Russians are not supposed to save you. It's your guys' matter between Europe and the United States. And the United States will come out on top here for a little bit while. But in the end, we know what is going on in the United States too. So United States probably buying itself slightly more time, maybe a year, I think, maybe even less than that. I don't know. It's difficult for me to really give the proper time frame. I'm not the forecaster. I'm not the guy who sits on the MSNBC or something and telling the confabulating things and telling their fairy tales about the economy. I just know it's really bad. And that's what we have to keep in mind. The same as we have to keep in mind that basically Russia is doing actually quite well in the military operation. And of course, it is only 1 week now before Russia increases and will continue to drive and to finish off this Ukraine as the state as it exists today. What is going to be, I don't know. People talk about Medvedev's map, people talk about what have you. I just know one thing, that the decision was made, and this partial mobilization was basically necessary, and because the game changed, and it changed completely. And again, Russia doesn't fight Ukraine really. Russia fights NATO, and this is a global conflict. And how it will configure itself down the road, I don't know. I can speculate, but again, when I ask patrons or my people who like what I do, support me, I do not ask them to support me for my fantasies and even, well, some reliable hypotheses. My task is to present facts, and facts are that things going well. Will there be escalation? I'm pretty sure there will be. United States is not going to surrender that easily. But considering the fact what is happening right now in the Western world altogether, and especially the suicidal, basically, and homicidal policies of the Fed and increasing the, interest rate, well, you know what? To fight this inflation, which nobody knows really the actual rate of inflation, it's definitely not 10%. Some people say it's 18, others say it's 28. It is there. It's a big time there. So you cannot handle it by increasing your interest rate by 75 hundredths of a percent. You probably need to increase it like 15% or something like that. But that obviously will kill the economy of the United States, which is already being killed. I'm not talking about the even green agenda. And so we can see this train wreck in real time, and that's what I wanted to tell you today. Meanwhile, the voting continues, and after that, after voting concludes on the 27th, the special military operation will completely be reconfigured, and forces involved will be completely different. And Russian public overwhelmingly supports that. And that's the truth of the matter. And I don't know, was the Associated Press going on the record trying to, basically correctly, justifiably claim and debunk this bullshit about Russians fleeing to Finland? I don't know. Maybe something happened. I don't know. It's about time something happened. It's about time they started at least try to present the actual facts and the actual situation as it unfolds, not as they invent for their, basically brainwashed people. So, and this is what my talk is about for you about today. And as always, guys, those who can support me, please support me on the Patreon. And those who like what I do, just subscribe to my channel. And I'll talk to you later, guys. Have a nice weekend. Bye bye.